like to welcome Lizzie Merritt today to the podcast. Welcome, Lizzie.
Thank you so much, Shelly. I am just thrilled. So excited to be here.
So I love the topic. I know you're into sports and things, right? Like I saw that you do the Spartan. Is that?
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit of your background in sports and doing the Spartan? Like where did that come from?
Oh, sure. So I was an athlete growing up. I was definitely a tomboy, and did sports in high school, and then did the post college work thing, sitting in an office and trying to find my fitness outside of the organized sports.
Mm-hmm.
Had some kids. At any rate, I loved doing obstacle races. Like just running, not so fun, but an obstacle race, it's like, oh, I could something I can jump over. Okay, there's a challenge. But the Spartan race just seems so intimidating to me, and it was even like a bucket list item, like one day I'll run a Spartan race. And I remember like seeing a woman at an amusement park wearing a Spartan t-shirt, and I admired it, and I was like, oh, I love your shirt. She's like, oh yeah. So we got talking about it, and she's like, you should do one. I was like, really, me? And so one year, in like a fit of inspiration slash insanity, I took advantage of like the Black Friday sale and signed up for a race, and immediately thought, what did I just do? But so yeah, I ran my first race and I fell in love with it, and I dragged my family into it, and now we've done loads and loads of them. I love Spartan races. They're fun. So much fun.
That's so fun. So can you explain for those who don't know what a Spartan race is, what that consists of?
Oh, sure. So there are three different distances, basically a 5K, a 10K, and a 15K. And it's a race through woodsy type areas, but there's also obstacles. Now, an obstacle can be jump over a wall. It could be run through a big mud puddle, climb a cargo net, pick up something heavy, all kinds of different little challenges within the race. So you get to stop running, which is great, but then you have to do some sort of obstacle type of thing when you stop.
So you are doing the running and the obstacles. Yeah, that's crazy but fun, I'm sure. So with those, are they those different lengths of time? Those aren't all in the same race, correct? Or they?
Correct. But there are some crazy people
Okay.
that do all three distances in a weekend. I've
Oh,
never done
wow.
that. I've done all three distances in a year.
Okay. That's good.
Right.
That's exciting. So with childhood and doing sports, so is that what kind of had you in the health like mindset of just eating and nutrition and being healthy? Where did that
Um,
start for you?
yes. I would say my athletic background transitioned into an interest in health and fitness as a profession, when my children were infants, excuse me, when they were babies,
Okay.
because a friend of mine started a stroller strides franchise, and she said, you have to come. And I was like, okay. And so this was basically fitness for moms of young children to kind of help them get back in shape after they've had their babies. And then she needed to go on maternity leave. And she asked me to teach her classes for her. And when I was teaching, I discovered that I loved teaching fitness, and I could, even though I consider myself to be an introvert, I could kind of put on my coach hat and be like, okay, ladies, let's get going, and make it fun for everyone. But along with that, I also began to feel a great sense of imposter syndrome, because I was not necessarily happy in my body. I didn't necessarily feel like I looked amazing in my skin. And so I was like, I got to figure this puzzle out so that, you know, the people that I'm teaching, I have something legitimate to say. And so I assumed that the answer was just more diets, more exercise. And after the ninth or 10th diet book and, the failed attempts, I began to realize, if diet and exercise are not getting me where I want to be and feeling comfortable in my skin, maybe it's between my ears. And that began a whole new journey into the kind of mental psychology behind weight loss and health, and um, just loving yourself and loving your body versus whatever the diet industry tells you.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I grew up with my mom who was dieting all the time, it seemed like, and just a constant battle up and down weight and things. And so I never wanted to do a diet. To me, it was
Yeah.
just like the healthy eating, your lifestyle, right?
Right.
So what have you found with doing these studies about the diet, the scary diet word, and making it, more of a good thing to eat well?
Sure. I mean, there's so much there, but let's just start with the scary diet word. It's it's amazing how diets actually set us up to fail. Because if you think about the way our brains are wired, we've got our prefrontal cortex, that's our kind of our conscious mind, which is the relatively newer, smaller part of our brains, and the subconscious, lower part of our brain, very primal, evolved back in caveman and cave gal days. So that's the part of our brain that runs most of our habits, whereas the prefrontal cortex is the part of our brain where we're like making future plans, where we say, I'm going to go on a diet. However, that lower part of the brain is if you think about the cave gal who was always looking around for what's wrong, what does that change mean? She was the one that survived long enough to pass on her genes. So basically, our survival brains look at change as a threat because of the way our brains evolved over time. And what's a diet? It's a whole lot of changes all at once.
Yeah.
So our prefrontal cortex, we can muscle our way into a couple of changes temporarily, but the bigger, stronger part of our brains is not interested in what makes us happy. It's not interested in what's necessarily good for us. That part of the brain wants what is familiar, and what is familiar is what we've always done. And so it is actively working to keep things the same and avoid change. And so that's why a diet literally works against the natural wiring of our brain. And in addition, diets make it seem so simple, like just follow these easy steps and you'll lose weight. And then when I struggle to follow the easy steps, I feel like, well, I must be the problem because the steps are easy. Anybody could understand them, but I'm struggling. So it must be my fault. And then I feel shame and self-condemnation. And that triggers a whole other, set of spirals that makes the diet process just backwards with how true change actually works.
Yeah. And like you said about the mental and the brain, and how do we start on that path of correcting our mentality of how we should be eating and food and things, and how we see ourselves?
Absolutely. So if we're talking about how to start on that path of making change that works with your brain, the key is small changes, and also giving yourself the grace to be imperfect, and little tiny wins are enough to keep you going. There's much more we could go into that. Basically, in my book, which I know we're going to talk about in a minute, I talk about the 4 stages of the 4 ways to make change a lot easier. I use this analogy of like a little person rolling a boulder up a hill, and that represents activation energy. And activation energy is like the energy you need to put in order to make a change. And a diet is like trying to roll a giant boulder up a really tall hill. So first, make the boulder smaller by asking less of yourself. So instead of I'm going to eat, kale at lunch every day, like try I'm going to have some broccoli this week once. So smaller ask. Then you make the hill smaller by making it easier to succeed. So it's not, you don't give yourself a grade on, did I do a good workout? Did I work out really hard? It's like, did I put on my shoes? Yes, no. And so it's more of a black and white. Did I put in any effort? Yes or no? Yes or no. And then consistency is way more important than quality. It's just, did I walk to the mailbox? That counts. And so, something that make it easy enough that you can keep doing over and over. One of the things I say is like, if you're thinking about making a change, can you still see yourself doing this 5 years from now? Yes, great, go for it. If not, let's look for something else. And then finally, give yourself rewards. It is so, so, so important to allow yourself to feel success along the way.
Yeah. And I think like the consistency made me think of like the tortoise and the hare, of how the tortoise consistency, slow, steady wins the race, right? So and choosing those little steps, not making too complicated, or not going, I don't like kale a whole lot, but we make kale chips from the kale in our garden and we love those. And so maybe just trying things in different forms. I don't know, but yeah, but just starting with things that little steps and being consistent with that. I love that. And so
Yeah.
you mentioned about your book, and I am so glad. I wanted to talk about it. I love the title. It actually is really touching my heart right now. Just, you are a miracle, and that is so true. We're each a miracle, right?
Mm.
So can you touch on where that title came from for you?
Oh, thank you so much for asking me that question. It's funny when you write a book, which is a whole nother process, but like, what's it going to be called? And I felt like the more I opened myself up to just be a vessel for God to speak through, the easier it became. And the title, You Are a Miracle, just flowed out of me because the message I wanted to convey was, it started with, I wanted to help people see your body, even if it doesn't look the way you want it to look with this moment, it is a genuine miracle. I mean, if you think about all the things, like, you get to hear your children laughing because of your body. You get to see a sunset because of your body. You get to hug your loved ones because of your body. You get to walk from your bedroom to the kitchen to have coffee and enjoy the coffee because of your body. Everything in this world, using all five of our senses, is because of this vehicle that we get to experience this life with this body. And you get a cut and it heals itself. If you had children, your body knew how to make a new person pretty
Mhm.
much by itself. So, like, there are so many things we can appreciate about the miracle of our bodies right now, today, even if you may want to lose weight. But then it even got even deeper than that as I began to work with, particularly women, in terms of weight loss. I began to realize that a lot of women hold themselves back from going for their goals, from expressing who they genuinely feel they want to be in this life, because they're waiting until they lose weight to go, on that beach vacation, to apply for the job, to just paint, anything. There are so many things that I think that a lot of women feel a lot of shame and not enoughness, and a lot of it revolves around their bodies. And so the title "You're a Miracle" was not only about your body, but about you as a creation of the divine. You are here for a reason. You are not a mistake. You have something very important and very unique to share with this world. And every minute that you spend waiting or wishing that could lose weight until you be who you really want to be is a minute that you're denying us the reason why you're here. So shine your light right now, because you are a miracle. So
That's
whew,
right.
that's why.
I love that. It is so true. We are each unique, and we each are divine, and we each have unique gifts and talents to share with the world, and we need to let that shine and share it with everyone. And like you're talking about, our bodies, we sometimes view it and limit ourselves because of the view we have of it, and that's not necessary, right? Because we each
Yeah.
have we're not our body. Our body is our vehicle for our spirit, and that, just to allow it to shine how we are. So
Yeah. And I like to think, sorry to interrupt.
go ahead.
As I was going through my own journey of trying to figure out, how do I appreciate my body, even if I want to lose weight? How do I um, begin to kind of love where I'm at? I began to see my body as this kind of, again, miraculous creation that has an intelligence of its own. Again, like, if I get a cut, it can heal itself. And so I began to view this experience of life as almost like a partnership of me and my body. We're going to be together for a while. So we might as well figure out how to make it a partnership working together, rather than an antagonistic relationship of me fighting against my body, all this time. And so that's what I like to work with my clients on, is like, how can you create a partnership with your body? Because again, you're going to be together for a long time. Let's make this work where you can appreciate each other.
I love that. I love that thought of how,
Mm.
just, yeah, working together.
Uh-huh.
You share a little bit about the things that you touch on in your book. You said you had some points in there that you share. So you touch on some highlights.
Sure. So one of the first chapters, let me back up. The way I organized the book was, I wanted to start with you almost like kind of healing your heart from the beginning, and then we can work on addressing habits, and then we can work on some of the obstacles that get in the way, like self-sabotage, eating our feelings. And then at the end is what I call the imperfect toolbox, because it's sort of the tactical things for when life is imperfect, because diets assume that life is going perfectly, and that's when you can eat perfectly. And I'm like, life isn't that way. So here's how to handle travel or vacation or holidays, things like that. But so in the beginning, I talk about one of the first chapters is how to feel enough. And, again, like so many of us want to lose weight almost as a currency, as an achievement, so that I can feel worthy. And the point in the book is your worthiness is like the sunshine. Like even, from our view on Earth, sometimes it seems like it's nighttime, but the sun is still out there shining, and your worthiness is always there, whether you feel it or not. Your job is simply to receive it. And then, like I said, we talk about the 4 steps of habit change, how to make failure your friend. That is one of the biggest things in weight loss. Is with diets, we feel like when we failed, I got to start over, or this isn't working. And my philosophy is just like riding a bike or learning to surf or what have you. Every failure is not a failure. It is an important integral piece of that learning process that's helping you learn and helping you grow. And it's not just something to get through or get over. It is a vital gift. It's such an important, valuable piece of the process, because at every failure, which I don't even like that word, but every slip up is a gold. It has so much richness to teach you if you're willing to look at that moment with self-compassion and curiosity, like a scientist, and drop the judgment, because self-judgment doesn't help in weight loss.
Yeah. And that's why you started in the first place, usually.
But there you go.
But yeah, like all things that happen, they're not failures. They're opportunities for a lesson, right? To learn from it and to grow forward. So I love that. And did you have an instance or times in your life what made you, or did you ever, maybe you haven't felt this way, but to feel like your body wasn't enough, or you weren't enough, that you could share, like some experiences that help you to grow and you were able to overcome?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I think, kind of a more poignant one. One of the things that I think is so challenging about weight loss is the sense of shame. And it kind of goes back to that surface level of the diet. If I can't follow the rules of the diet, then I must be the problem. But then we get into all kinds of various reasons why we feel ashamed for either the way we eat or the way we look. Sometimes, habits can manifest that we eat in secret, and then, or we find ourselves at the bottom of a bag of chips and you're like, how did I even get here? Or, why did I do this again? And I have had that experience with alcohol, that why is this still a problem for me? Like, I know my prefrontal cortex knows, like, none of this is good for me. And yet I still find myself in this challenging situation. And I finally got to a place of like, I am tired of this same old conversation in my head of like, Lizzie, why did you do that again? And I'm like, what if I change the conversation? What if I get curious? What if I, say, Lizzie, I love you. Even this part of you that I don't understand and I don't necessarily like, we're going to figure this out together. And it was that beginning of that self-compassion, of letting go of the shame, which loves to hide in the dark. And if you can shine a light on and say, hey, it's normal to struggle. Let's figure this out together. That is the pathway towards understanding and just releasing some of that shame and judgment, and get to a place where you're like, I may not understand how to figure this out now, but I believe in myself enough that I believe I can figure it out. And that's enough to get started.
Yeah. And what might be some questions to ask yourself? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. So let's start with, the normal, not normal, but common conversation might be, why did I do this again? And our brains are puzzle solving machines. You give yourself a question, your brain's going to get to work finding an answer. So the quality of the question matters a lot. So if I ask myself, why did I do this again? My brain's going to come up with answers that don't feel very good. They're going to make me feel shame. They're going to make me feel guilt and remorse. And one of the primal operating systems of the brain is seek pleasure and avoid pain. And if I am asking myself, why did I do this again? That creates a painful answer. So my brain will want to avoid that pain. And a fast way to avoid pain is a quick hit of dopamine with something sugary or sweet or salty or that type of thing. So it becomes this downward spiral. So go back to the question, instead of why did I do this again? Perhaps, what was it that led me to make that choice? Which is not necessarily a happy question, but it's going from a negative to a more neutral question. Perhaps a more positive question could be, what am I really needing right now? If it's not the food or the drink, what is my brain thinking the food will help me feel? What do I want to feel? Sometimes it's I'm tired, I need a nap. Sometimes I'm lonely, I'm bored. There's a lot of times like what do I really need right now is a more loving question. So a lot of times the quality of your question can shift the answer and can also level up your energy and the way that you're feeling about yourself, which makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I was just thinking about sleep. I'm very bad. I need my sleep, but I
Uh-huh.
stay up doing things, right? And I don't get to bed as early as I say I'm going to or want to every day. Like, I do some things get in the way, right? And then I have to still get up at the same time early. So it's just that cycle. But yeah, okay, where does it start even before the staying up late?
Hmm.
What's the problem? What am I missing there that I'm not
Hmm.
changing this habit?
I mean, that's a fascinating example. I remember, I mean, it took me many whiffs to figure this out, but there were days where I was kind of I had more cravings than others, or I was more grumpy than others. I'm just like, oh, the heck with it. I'm just gonna have whatever I want.
Mhm.
And when I began to shift that question away from why did I do this again and towards what am I really needing, or like what might have led to this, the answer frequently was, well, I didn't sleep very well last night. And well, that makes complete sense because if I'm tired, the brain literally shunts blood flow away from your prefrontal cortex, those decision making brain, towards the more survival parts of the brain, and that's also the impulsive part of your brain. And so when you're tired, you literally have less brain capacity for making long-term decisions that will help your long-term goals, and your body is also going to be craving foods higher in sugar, salt, and fat because those have quick energy boosts. And so it completely makes sense that your cravings are higher on days when you're tired. And so instead of saying like, what's wrong with me? You'd be like, well, I didn't get much sleep last night. So I'm not broken. I just need more sleep.
Right. That's interesting. That's fascinating. Yeah, I had a daughter recently. She's at college and she did an all-nighter. I found out. I'm like, oh my gosh. I did that once with some friends in college just for fun, and it was a killer. So like, okay, you're killing your brain cells. You can't think straight when you're trying. And she was just doing it for work, schoolwork or whatever. And I was like, it's not going to help you.
Yep.
losing all that sleep. But I didn't even thought about that with the food part of it, that we'll just want those quicker sugars, right, to give us that burst of energy. Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's like a double hit because your body wants the sugar or the carbohydrates, and your brain is less capable of making long-term decisions because there's just not as much blood in that part of the brain, because your body is like, we're in survival mode. And so let's give energy and blood to the survival parts of the brain. And they're like, feed me now. That's what your brain's saying.
yeah, yeah. So thinking about the you are a miracle and our body image, how can people get over that? I mean, just that cycle of seeing themselves not being able to do some things, like you said, just go out and get a job or whatever it is, because they don't see themselves worthy enough because of
Mm.
how they perceive their body. is not worthy for presentation or whatever.
Yeah. Great question. And I would start with, again, it kind of goes with those questions you're asking yourself and the thoughts that you're thinking. And so let's say you look in the mirror in the morning and your first thought is, oh my gosh, I hate my body. That's a pretty negative feeling.
Mhm.
And as nice as it would be to be able to just flip a switch and say, nope, today I'm going to look in the mirror and say, I love myself. I'm beautiful. It doesn't work like that, because your brain will call BS on it and say, I don't believe that's true.
Mhm.
And it can almost backfire. So you want to make sure you're proactively thinking a thought that feels true. Real quick, speaking of proactive thought, kind of going back to the primitive brain and the caveman, cave gal days, you know, the cave gal who survived was always on the lookout for a problem. Is there a tiger? What's wrong with this picture? Is the change in the weather mean a famine? What's wrong? She survived long enough to pass on her genes. So our default setting is a negativity bias. So with no supervision, our brains will automatically be scanning for what's wrong in our environment or our bodies. Fortunately, our environments are relatively safe these days, so we find problems with ourselves, which means if you're going to have positive thoughts about yourself, you need to do it on purpose. It's not going to happen, sitting on the couch. Kind of like if you wanted to get better at shooting a basketball free throws, you would not sit on the couch and be like, boy, it would be nice if I got better. You would go out and practice.
Right.
It's the same with our thoughts. So going back to the mirror, if your thought is, I hate my body, going from negative to super positive doesn't feel true, so you want to make sure it feels true. So you can just neutralize it. So instead of I hate my body, you could say, I have a body. Now that doesn't feel like exciting, but it feels true
Uh-huh.
and it's neutral. So you've gone from negative to neutral, which is a net positive. And so you can kind of like stair step your way almost up the stairwell towards more positive thoughts, all the while making sure that the thought you're thinking feels true, but it's a little bit better, a little bit more neutral, a little bit more positive than the negative thought. Are you up for a hack?
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
it.
The word but can be really helpful, because it basically negates everything that came in front of it. So like we've all heard like, no offense, but
Yeah.
whatever is coming next is probably going to offend you. So if you're
And you think it's more their truer thought, right?
right, yes. So if a negative thought pops up, which again, negativity bias, that's normal. It's going to happen. Nothing's gone wrong. You can just catch it and say, I don't like the way my thighs look, but I am learning to appreciate my body every day. Or I don't like the number on the scale, but I am working towards making a partnership with my body all the time. Whatever it is, I am learning how to love myself a little bit more each day. I am learning to find the things I appreciate about myself or about my body, like that my arms can hug my loved ones or that my ears can hear my kids laughing. So if and when that negative thought arises, just use the word but and shift it towards something that feels true, but a little bit more positive.
Perfect. I love it. I mean, it's simple, but it's adding a little more truth that's more neutral and stuff. That's good.
Cool.
Good thing. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I with my girls, and the weight issue and things like that and the self-image, I never wanted a scale in our home. And we haven't, just because I don't want the weight to be what they focus on, but how they feel and who they are. So yeah, I just thinking of the mirror and just self-image, but I love the butt and how, just put
Well,
that.
it's amazing too, mentioning the scale. I have a whole chapter in my book about like how to handle the scale. And it's crazy that we let this piece of plastic and metal that sits on the floor and spits out a number, we let that little box determine our whole day. If it doesn't say a number that I don't like. And if you think about it, a calculator is similar. Like it's a little piece of plastic and metal and it spits out a number, has the same function. But I never feel bad about the number on the calculator. And the reason why is because the number on the scale, what do we make it mean about ourselves?
Mhm.
And so it's all again, it's all between our ears.
Yes.
And if you think about it, you weigh the exact same 30 seconds before you step on the scale as you do 30 seconds after you step on the scale. And so if you can kind of take ownership of how I want to feel about myself today, the number that it puts out is data. Just like a scientist doing experiments that collects data, I am collecting data on the science experiment of me. This doesn't mean anything about me as a person. It's just information about my experiment.
That's perfect. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how do you help people with that? You know, those who are trying to lose the weight and
Mhm.
get over this image. I mean, is it more the mental that you work with, or do you also help with the physical, techniques and things?
Yeah. We do both. And so
Okay.
each person is unique. And so whenever I'm working with a one-on-one client, it's, I want to get to know them and where they're struggling and their challenges are. And the thing that is uniform across the board is we're going to make tiny changes. Like, for example, I have one client who is like, all we're going to do this week is you're just going to record what you ate for dinner.
Hmm.
That's it. And it was just like teeny little, and I was like, I feel like if you record everything you ate for the day, that's going to feel like too much. So let's make it so easy that it feels super doable. It doesn't feel like a threat to your subconscious mind, that change is bad part of the brain. And so just helping her gain a little bit of awareness and mindfulness towards what she's eating and how much. And so those little tiny changes along the way. And then the part that I really enjoy is as we work together, obstacles are going to come up, unique circumstances, or like, I feel like I made a mistake here or a slip up there. I'm like, great, let's talk about it. Again, it's like there's so much gold and information in those slip ups, in those challenging moments, that if we can kind of unpack those with loving compassion and curiosity, there's a lot to learn from them and grow and help people, again, kind of release some of that shame and realize we're all just humans with brains that are, back in the caveman days, doing our best to survive in an environment where hostess cakes are really easy to come by.
Yeah, yeah. And thinking of obstacles made me think of your Spartan experiences, how there's those obstacles in the way, but you have your end goal, and you just figure a way out. You just figure how to get over these obstacles or how to get through them. And I love that. Just, there is a way. Just have to sometimes change your perspective, make it simpler or whatever, but there's a way to overcome our obstacles.
Right. And again, going back to that failure idea, is like in a diet, failure means I got to start over or I fell off the wagon. And I say, like, there's no wagon. Failure is or slipping up is a beautiful part of the process that is just helping you learn more about the experiment of you and what works for you uniquely in your life. So there's no wagon.
Yeah. That's awesome. So before we close, do you have anything else you would like to share with the audience? And then I would like for you to share where they can get in touch with you and what you have.
Sure. I guess, again, kind of going back to my main message with the idea of you are a miracle. In my book, I couldn't decide if I wanted to put the conclusion at the beginning or at the end, and I obviously decided to put it at the end. But have you ever heard of the Golden Buddha?
Yes.
So, for anybody who's not familiar, back in the 60s, folks in a monastery found a large statue of a golden Buddha, and they were like moving it, and it fell and it cracked. But beneath the cracks, there was this kind of gold light coming through. What they realized was the statue of the Buddha was gold, like pure gold underneath, and it had mud caked over it. And this is a real story, but it's a beautiful metaphor for how I view the weight loss journey. Is that, when we're born, you look at babies. Babies are so enamored with these, like, wow, fingers, I can stick it in my nose. Look at this. We don't have that innate shame. We come into this world feeling enough, and we learn that shame, that guilt over time. And that's like the mud over the golden Buddha. And so the weight loss journey is not arriving somewhere. It's more revealing your light on the inside and receiving it and allowing yourself to be that golden Buddha, that golden light that again is a creation of the divine, and you're here for a reason. You are not a mistake. And exactly as you are, with what you perceive as your weird quirks and imperfections, like those are the gifts that you have to bring to all of us, and we need them. So shine your light.
That's right. Yeah, I love that. That's different than what I was thinking about the golden Buddha. I love that. And just how, yeah, sometimes mud gets put on us from exterior, what things people might say, or just our own perceptions or whatever, but that we can work and wipe it off, and keep it clear and shine that light. I love that. That's a good analogy, or good. I mean, it's a true story you said, so that's amazing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I researched it for the book. I was like, at first I thought it was a metaphor. I was like, no, this is a real thing. It really happened.
Yeah, that's so neat. So can you tell everybody where they can get in touch with you, connect with you, learn from your light?
Cool. Thank you. Well, I have a podcast called the Confident Body Podcast. So that's an easy, free way. My website is confidentbody.coach. And as we discussed, my book is called You Are a Miracle: How to Lose Weight and Love Your Body Too, which is available on Amazon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been so great to talk to you, Lizzie. I appreciate you spending time with me and sharing all this good stuff.
Me too. Thanks. This has been so much fun. I appreciate it. This has been great. Thank you.